Hello, everybody. My name's Nick Tabor, and I chose to do my presentation on the history of sport in Spain. So, Spain is a European country. It's on the very far west of Europe. It's located between France and Portugal. It is a Spanish speaking country, which is, easy to assume. It's named after the country. Its capital is Madrid. Some of its other key cities, though, are Barcelona, Valencia, Seville, Bilbao, Malaga, Las Palmas, and Zaragoza. Barcelona is in a part of Spain called Catalonia that doesn't really consider itself Spain, but Spain itself as a country doesn't allow them to govern themselves, so they're a part of it anyways. Some of Spain's most popular sports include soccer or football, whatever you decide to call it, which is Spain's national sport. Basketball, it was growing more and more popular in the country every single year. And tennis. Soccer or football is one of my favorite sports to watch. I've gotten into it a lot lately, and that's why I decided to do Spain, because I know how big of a deal it is to people in Spain and how much it impacts their culture and their lives. Some more sports that are popular in Spain that aren't really as big in America include padel, which in English is just paddle tennis. It's pretty much just the same as tennis, except they use different rackets to hit the ball with. Bullfighting. Bullfighting is really big in Spain. I'm sure you've all heard of like running of the bulls, where they go and do that every summer, which inevitably results in the bullfight at the end of the run. Cycling and handball. Handball's pretty big in Europe as a whole, and it's just as big in Spain as it is the rest of the countries over there. Some of Spain's big sport teams, they're all pretty much just soccer teams, really. Like Barcelona and Real Madrid, those are kind of just the worldwide names that people even in America are pretty familiar with. The one on the far left is Atletico Madrid. It's another soccer team that is in Madrid. The second picture there is Spain's official team logo for their national team for soccer. Some of the other leagues that exist in Spain, like the basketball league and the handball league, Barcelona and Madrid, Real Madrid also have teams in that. So their branding kind of spans across multiple sports. They're not just keeping themselves strictly to soccer. So it's kind of, for example, if the Patriots bought a team in the MLB and they named it the Boston Patriots, it's kind of branching over to multiple different sports. So some of the sports leagues in Spain, you have La Liga Santander, which is their primary soccer league. The way that soccer works in Europe is that they don't really have minor leagues, they just have different divisions. So for example, the bottom three in La Liga Santander, like the worst three teams, they get demoted. And the league that they go to, the best three teams that perform that season, go up to La Liga Santander. So to kind of put it in American words, if, for example, like the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Kings were all the three worst teams in the NBA one season, they would get sent to the G League, and then the three best teams from the G League would get brought up to the NBA, and they'd get to play that next season out. So that's kind of how they do stuff over there. Asobal is the handball league they have, and Real Madrid and Barcelona's basketball teams play in the Euro League, which is a league that spans across all of Europe. But they do have their own individual basketball league in Spain called Liga Endesa, which isn't really as popular as the Euro League is for basketball. It's kind of like the Canadian Football League and stuff like that is for the NFL, where it's in the picture, but it's nowhere near as big as the top dog. All of Spain's sports organizations are filed under these different federations that are all pretty much located in Madrid, because like I said, their second largest city, Barcelona, they don't really consider themselves part of Spain, so they've taken it and they've made it so all of these are located in Madrid so they can have control over it. And they have federations for pretty much anything. These are just some of the ones that I picked out. They have one for underwater activities, The Royal Spanish Athletics Federation is kind of just like their version of like USA Track and Field. They have one for chess, badminton, baseball, and softball are both governed by the same body. Royal Spanish Football Federation, that's the main one that controls their soccer and all the tournaments and leagues and stuff they have. They have a golf federation, one for padel. They also had a bunch of different other ones for different like surfing even and like F1 racing. They have a bunch of them just for a whole bunch of different sports. So the history of sport in Spain, the Catalan Football Championship was kind of the predecessor to La Liga, but since it was located in Catalonia and due to government politics stuff in the 1900s, they got rid of it and they moved the league to the rest of Spain. So that league kind of got dissolved and they stopped playing in it. Bullfighting goes all the way back to 1100 AD in Spain. It's like a BC thing across the world, but in Spain, like kings and queens at their weddings used to have bullfights as entertainment. Manuel Alonso is a tennis player. He was in the final at Wimbledon in 1921, and that kind of spurred a little like tennis revolution in Spain where a lot of people got into tennis and it made it a lot bigger of a sport in Spain, which ended up giving us like Rafael Nadal that we wouldn't have had if he probably hadn't made it to that final. So the culture of sport in Spain. Spain is dominated by soccer. Soccer is by far and away the biggest sport in Spain. The Spanish national team won the 2010 World Cup, which is kind of impressive because as big as the sport is there, they didn't really have much success on an international level until that World Cup. But Spanish players are idolized and viewed as gods pretty much over there. Even like foreign players, for example, like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, they're from Argentina and Portugal, but they're still viewed as like these gods that are on these pedestals above normal people over there. Basketball is gaining popularity pretty quickly. That's due a lot in part to the Gasol brothers, Mark and Pau, in addition to guys like Ricky Rubio and these days like the Aaron and Gomez brothers that are playing. The historical significance of bullfighting. So Pamplona is a city in Spain where they do the running of the bulls, and it's just a big celebration where kind of the whole country just flocks there every July, and it's just a thing that gets everyone together and they all celebrate kind of just Spain as a whole. So politics have played a big role in a lot of sport in Spain. For example, the guy on the right there, his name's Francisco Franco. He was a fascist dictator that ruled for almost 40 years in Spain. He had a lot of impact on a lot of soccer results and stuff like that, and especially the Catalonia dispute. There's also another region of Spain called the Basque Country, who's kind of the same as Catalonia, that they don't really consider themselves part of Spain, but Spain itself still rules over them because they don't view their independence. So Franco was a really big supporter of Real Madrid. Real Madrid was kind of always viewed as the team that the wealthy elites of Spain were fans of, and kind of the fascist regime that was in place there. They were the fans of Real Madrid. One example of how politics influenced sports directly was the 1943 Copa del Rey, which is the Spanish country tournament where all the teams in Spain have a big tournament to see who wins. And they played two different games, and the combined score of those games is the final score. So if a team won 2-0 and the next game they won 2-1, the final score would be 4-1 and they would win the thing. And after the first game, Barcelona won 3-0, and an agent from Franco's security team visited the team and told them that there would be consequences if they didn't lose the next game. And so the next game they ended up losing 11-1, which was kind of unheard of at the time. So Real Madrid ended up winning that tournament, and everyone kind of knew that he had some sort of involvement in it. So to kind of go into further detail on this whole Catalonian Basque country situation, they're just different territories in Spain that don't acknowledge themselves as part of Spain. They, in their eyes, are viewed as independent, but Spain doesn't acknowledge their independence, so they still are under Spanish rule. And these two teams, Barcelona being one of them, the other one named Athletic Bilbao, they're both actively rejecting Spanish culture or just Spain in general, and so do their fans. Barcelona is arguably one of the most famous teams in the world, and they proudly represent Catalonia. The little yellow and red stripes in the top right of their badge, that is part of the Catalonian flag, which for a long time they weren't allowed to have on their logo because Francisco Franco and his regime outlawed it. Pretty much it said that you couldn't show any public support for either of these two regions. Athletic Bilbao is a team based in Basque Country. They have this odd thing where they only use players that are born in or trained in Basque Country. So because of that, their entire roster is just strictly people of Spanish nationality. They don't have any foreign players or anything like that. So Rayo Vallecano is another big team in Spain. They're another team from Madrid, and they're kind of known as the working class team. All of their fans are kind of working class people. They have been kind of since their entire existence. The attitude that they represent is a huge source of local pride for people in Madrid, and as well as just kind of all over Spain. An example of that is that the owner of the team on numerous occasions has just like paid fans rent when they were out of jobs and weren't unable to. So they're kind of not necessarily a football team first. They like giving back to the community, and the fans are very, very important to them, which they show time and time again. So sports media in Spain, beIN Sports is the channel or like series of channels where they broadcast all of the soccer matches as well as handball stuff and some EuroLeague basketball matches as well. That being said, Real Madrid and Barcelona still have their own personal channels that they broadcast all of their teams' games on. And there's a series of newspapers in Spain that are dedicated strictly to soccer. Some of them only report on specific teams. For example, the one in the middle there, Marca, they report strictly on Barcelona. And although the cover that's right there is on the Spanish national team, they cover that as well. But as far as from like a club level, they'll only post stories and results from Barcelona and the teams that they play against. Sports marketing. All of the professional leagues have official sponsorships in the title of the league. So, for example, La Liga is La Liga Santander. The second division is La Liga Smartbank. Before it was Santander, it used to be called La Liga BBVA. BBVA is a large bank in Spain, centered in Bilbao, but their handball league is sponsored by a company called Sasir, and even EuroLeague is sponsored by Turkish Airlines. They're primarily not referred to by their sponsorship names. People just call them La Liga or the EuroLeague, but their official titles are contractually obligated to include the name of these companies. In addition, kind of the teams in these leagues, their jerseys are just covered in sponsorships. So the picture on the left, that's all of the teams that are currently in La Liga, and you can kind of see some of them don't have any advertisements on the front, but the majority of them have big companies that sponsor them to get on their jerseys. That's a big thing pretty much throughout all of soccer. It's kind of starting to get more popular in the NBA where they have that little patch like near the sleeve that shows what company's sponsoring them, but in soccer they have pretty much as many sponsors on a jersey as they can get. And even those other three pictures, the two Barcelona jerseys, their handball and their basketball teams, they still have sponsorships. And the Real Madrid basketball teams, they're also got sponsors on them. Each jersey will also have the sponsor of the brand that makes them, whether it's Nike or Adidas or anything like that. Those will be on all of the jerseys as well. So marketing through sports is a big thing in Spain especially. So some of the famous athletes from Spain, so like soccer obviously is the biggest sport there, so their athletes are the most important to them. Luis Suarez is the guy in the bottom right. He played soccer in the 50s and 60s, and he's kind of regarded as one of the greatest Spanish players of all time. The picture on the bottom left is a lot of more of the modern Spanish soccer legends. For example, they have Iker Casillas is a famous goalkeeper, Xavi, Sergio Ramos, Andres Iniesta, Raúl. In Spain, some of these players, they kind of have like the LeBron effect where they only need to go by one name. For example, like the Xavi and Raúl, that's all they're known by. They don't need the rest of their name. Mark and Pau Gasol, basketball players, they played in the NBA for a while. They played for 31 combined seasons. They have 3 combined NBA championships, Pau Gasol with the Lakers and Marc Gasol when he got his with the Toronto Raptors. And they have 9 combined All-Star appearances, and they are kind of like Spain's LeBron and MJ. They're by far and away the most popular Spanish basketball players, and they're revered pretty highly over there. And then finally, Rafael Nadal. A lot of people consider him the GOAT as far as tennis goes. He has 21 Grand Slam titles, which is the most of anyone of all time. And he has spent 209 weeks ranked number 1 in the tennis world rankings. So some fun facts about Spanish sport. There are over 45,000 members of the Spain Surfing Federation. So obviously they are surrounded by water, so surfing has actually become a pretty big sport over there. That woman, her name is Ariane Ochoa. She was the under-18 world champions of surfing in 2016. The first time anyone from Spain has ever won a world championship of any kind in that competition. Spain is a canoeing powerhouse at the Olympics. I don't really know why that is, but they just kind of seem to always take over in canoeing when they're there. There's a athlete named David Cal who has won the most out of any Spanish Olympian in history, and he was a canoer. And then actually pretty recently, the Barcelona and Real Madrid's women's teams recently broke the attendance record for fans at a women's match where they had 91,500 people show up for a game that Barcelona ended up winning 4-2. And it got pretty big play on Twitter with a lot of people trying to promote the women's game, kind of similar how we try to promote the WNBA in the U.S. They're trying to make a movement for women's soccer to become bigger over there. And yeah, that's my presentation on history and sport. Thank you for listening.